was 12 years old, and I was a student at St. Brennan's Grammar School in the Bronx in New York City, I stepped up one day and opened the door for my teacher. And Sister Bertram, when she walked by me, looked at me and said, "Paul Rinn, you have impeccable manners. It's a shame you're not too smart." My sentiments exactly. Several decades later, a lot of gray hair, leading women and men in life-threatening type situations successfully, notoriety on the national level and the international level. Despite all of that, those words still sting. I was a C student. Got lots of C's and C pluses, some B's and occasional A. But I always wondered, why is it so hard to get an A? Why is it that when I do something really, really good, nobody notices? How am I ever going to be successful? How am I going to get ahead? So I decided to form a strategy that would work for me. I would be determined. I'd be persistent. I'd work harder than everybody else. And I would connect with everybody else. I would learn to get along. I would learn to work with people who I worked for and who I worked with and who I came in contact with. And I used that strategy very effectively to get through college and lead a crew team to almost a national championship. And then into the Navy, where I gained a commission in the United States Navy shortly after graduation. And amazingly, I discovered that commanders and captains in the Navy really wanted to have somebody who was persistent, determined, worked harder, and got along and led his men well. So accordingly, almost with a great deal of surprise, in my 13th year in the Navy, I received orders to take command of the Navy's newest ship, the guided missile frigate Samuel B. Roberts. High-tech ship, tremendous capability, gas turbine engines the size of your 747 jet. 0 to 30 knots, 28 seconds, turn on a dime, stop in the length of the ship. Well-armed, unbelievable. I was going to be the youngest commanding officer of the Navy's newest ship. I think those guys at Annapolis raised a few eyebrows over that. Kind of interesting. But when I went to the ship, I wanted to imbue in my crew, the men I was going to lead, that same sense of determination, persistence, hard work, getting along, synergy, trusting your shipmate, believing in everybody, working together, synergy. Why? There's no bands on the battlefield, and there's no medals for second place in war. So I wanted them to be ready. And I started to train them with all of this, and to do that, I invited every single one of them to my cabin when they came and sat down and told them what our goal was, to be only the best, and what their role was in that, in not just their everyday job, but in pride and professionalism and how to behave and how to act, to trust in their shipmate, to do things together. Together, we would be better than anybody else. And I was ecstatic as the ship performed brilliantly, breaking every record that the Navy had had for over 30 years when we came out and started sailing across the seas. And then one day, I met a young sailor, Michael Tilley, from Hannibal, Missouri. Michael Tilley didn't come to see me in my cabin. He came to see me at Captain's Mast. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the Navy, Captain's Mast is like getting sent to the principal's office, but the penalties are a lot stiffer. Tilley reported to the ship the night before I saw him, and he had stowed his gear and gone off to a local bar. Tilley looked about 15 years old, and when the bartender asked him for some proof, as we all know happens, Tilley gave him an ID card that said he was 29. Not too good. When the bartender asked him for some backup ID, he gave him one that showed him he was 25. Hannibal, Missouri, I know, yeah, okay. So Tilly is in this argument with the bartender when the shore patrol arrives, and now he's in front of me. And the Master Chief of the command, the senior enlisted man, says, "Captain, he just needs a stern talking to, he'll be okay." And I think that's true. And I'm looking at Tilly and thinking of Sister Bertrand. And I think I give him my best leadership speech. You've embarrassed the Navy, you've embarrassed the ship. Tilly, you've embarrassed yourself. Pull your act together, get on with it. He says, "Sorry, Captain, I made a mistake, I'll never do it again." And when I walk away from Mass that day, I'm pretty convinced I'm never gonna see Tilly again. I've given it my best shot. Wrong. Okay. Samuel B. Roberts gets operational. They send us to the Caribbean, drug ops, counter-drug ops. And in the space of 4 weeks, we capture 3 druggers, 3 big drug ships, cocaine, marijuana, cocoa, $36 million. The Navy is ecstatic with our performance, and they send us to St. Thomas and the Virgin Islands for a surprise port visit. It's great. And when we get there, the crew, the guys that they are, get together and they go out and they start painting schools, rewiring hospitals, taking care of all sorts of things in the community. Exemplary. I couldn't be prouder of them. Tilly's part of that. But the next to last night that we're there, Tilly goes out to Blackbeard's Castle for dinner and maybe a couple of drinks. And while he's there, he decides he has to go to the men's room. And he gets up and goes to the men's room, and lo and behold, there's a line. And he looks outside, and he sees bushes. You're with me. Good. This is good. And he goes outside, and he's in the bushes, and he looks up, and he sees all of the windows for the restaurant, and they're mirrors. And he said, "Damn, there's nothing like that in Hannibal, Missouri." And he's in front of me the next day with, lewd and lascivious behavior. The Master Chief of the command now says, "Captain, I'm not sure Tilly is good for the Navy or the Navy is good for Tilly. You should think about processing him out." And I still look at this man and say, you know what? We don't give up on anybody. I'm sure there's something in there, and it's our leadership that may have come up short, that we didn't bring him along. So I give Tilly a talking to, give him a little discipline, and on we go. Several months later, with the ship performing at a very high level and doing great things, we're in the South Atlantic when a message comes in late November, and it tells us that we have been the winner of the Battle of Efficiency in our squadron. 17 ships, gas turbine ships, the most modern ships in the U.S. Navy. We're picked as the #1 ship. It's a great thing. And the crew is incredibly proud of what they've achieved. But at the same time, the paragraph 2 is, oh, by the way, there's a war in the Persian Gulf. U.S. tankers and cargo ships, as well as others, are being attacked by the Iranians and the Iraqis. Detach from where you are, come back to Newport, Rhode Island, and deploy to the war zone in 7 weeks. So Roberts turns, and we race back to Newport, Rhode Island. And en route, I gather the crew together, and I tell them we're going to divide the crew in half. First half goes before Christmas. Be back on the 26th. Don't screw your shipmate. It's man for man. The second group gets to go, and they will be back just before we deploy on the 20th of January. Here's a quiz. The whole crew comes back except one person. He is? Good. Very good. And now he's before me at Captain's Mast, and the Master Chief says, "Gotta go." The XO supports him, and I am now even convinced that perhaps it's time for Tilly to depart the pattern. And I'm about to sign the page 4 entry to detach him from the Navy when he says, "Captain, can I speak?" "Sure, Tilly. What do you got?" "Please don't throw me out of the Navy. It's all I got. I don't know my father. My mother's an alcoholic. My dog bit me and ran away. And my girlfriend broke up with me and stole my car. That's why I'm late." You can't write this stuff. My XO is standing behind me. He says these magic words. Oh no, I know where this is going. I cannot put Michael Tilly out of the Navy. Everything says I should. You mean he's the guy who will drop the projectile, fall over the side, all these things. But something tells me, it's good. Last group of the day, this is good. All right. Something tells me this guy has a purpose and he's going to be okay. So I tell Tilly, I'm not putting you out of the Navy, but I am putting in a note in your service jacket that says one thing at all. You won't come here, you'll be gone. You'll be processed out. Thank you, Captain. I won't let you down. Whew, as I'm walking away from Mass that day, that kind of scares me to death. So we deploy. Persian Gulf's a terrific place, great neighborhood. 120 degrees in the shade, sandstorms every other day, visibility 4 miles, sharks, snakes, great neighborhood. A lot of attacks, 10 attacks when we get there, all over the place. We're made squadron commander, and for the next 127 days, Samuel B. Roberts conducts convoys. We establish a cordon sanitaire around our ships, all the U.S. flag carriers, and we tell the Iranians and the Iraqis, if you come inside of that 5-mile range, we will attack you. And they try us out one time, and then they realize, probably not a good idea, and they don't bother us anymore. And for that period of time, 14 convoys, no American ship is attacked. In fact, it's so successful that ships from other nations that don't have escorts there start making American flags. Very interesting. 8 stripes, 7 stars, you know. What country is that anyway? So wait, be good now. This is international relations. So we let them in our formation, and we take care of them, and we go along. During this time frame, though, the Iranians decide to attack people in the Straits of Hormuz. And I am given direction, go to the Straits of Hormuz and stop them. Don't start the next war, Captain. But if he starts it, you finish it. So we go down, and this is a picture taken on a day that we ran off on the Iranian frigate, the Sabalon, and chased him into port, and he went away. The attacks on the Straits of Hormuz go from 6 before we start to 2 to 0. And for 3 weeks, nothing. So we feel pretty good. Guys on the ship, the crew feels great. And during this time frame, I keep hearing from the crew that Tilly is doing a phenomenal job. So good that he's been given his own space up in AMR-1, Auxiliary Machinery Room number 1. Very difficult to get to, forward part of the ship, emergency diesel. We only use in duress. And I think I want to go up there and see this. So at 1 o'clock in the morning one night, when nothing's going on, I work my way into that space, and there's Tilly working. But I look around the space, everything's perfect. Diesels all look right. I mean, the equipment all looks right. All the instruction cards are in the right place. You could eat off the deck. Wow. And I tell Tilly, you're doing a good job. And he said, Captain, I'm just trying to keep the Master Chief from trying to kill me. So Tilly looks at me and he says, I just want to be a success. Ring a bell? I just want to learn how to do it right. I've never had any guidance. So I say to Tilly, don't worry about it. You're doing a good job. Learn your equipment in this space and keep doing what you're doing. But remember, I believe in you, and the Navy believes in you, and that's why you're here. And as I walk out of the space that night, Fireman Tilly says to me, Captain, you know, no one has ever said that to me in my entire life. Amazing. So, after all of this, though, we're low on fuel. So we are sent to a rendezvous in the middle of the Persian Gulf. It's kind of a common place to rendezvous, and we head off at 30 knots. And I'm in my cabin arguing with the chief cook about too much spinach on the menu, which captains are prone to do. And the ship starts to shudder. This is never a good sign. We're going 30 knots and we're shuddering. My phone rings. Forget it. I go to the bridge, and this is what I see. 2 MO8 mines directly in front of the ship at 500 yards, and another one right off the starboard beam at 300. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize we're in a minefield. I notify the crew immediately on the 1MC. That's a loudspeaker situation. Captain never talks on that, so the crew knows something big is up. And I can see my wake behind the ship, and I tell them I'm going to back down in. Set zebra, maximum condition of readiness. Everybody up above the main deck. If a mine goes off down there, you won't have a chance. Everybody comes up above the main deck except for one man. Michael Tilly decides that it's Payback time for the Navy. And so he reports that he's coming up above the main deck and steps back down into the space and closes the hatch and dogs himself in. They may need number 1 diesel. Tilly doesn't tell anybody he's down there. He just kind of honkers down. If the mine goes off under AMO 1, there'll be nothing left of him. And he knows that. Start to back the ship. The crew is performing as usual, absolutely superbly, doing exactly what they're supposed to do. In position, 25 minutes, we're backing. I'm very confident we'll escape when the largest explosion I have experienced in 29 years in the naval service. I'm 114 feet from the explosion. It fractures my right foot. It shatters everything on the ship that's horizontal. It destroys those 2 gas turbine engines, disintegrates them. It breaks the ship in 2, with the exception of the main deck, puts a 30-foot hole in the ship, and in the space of seconds, we go from a 4,000-ton frigate to a 6,000-ton frigate. The flames are 100 feet above the ship. We're in big trouble. Where's the nearest ship? 140 miles away. Even if they get here, and they're not going to get here in time, we're in a minefield, so they can't come to us. So we're in for a battle. Put out the fires, dewater the ship. But our biggest problem is, of the 4 diesels on the ship, 2 are gone. They've been destroyed. Only 1 is hanging on, and it's really struggling with the load. So we're stripping it, and that means we can't get enough power to put out the fires or pump water over the side. We have to get number 1 diesel going. So Tilly is unconscious up in AMR 1, but he comes to. And I wanted to tell you one thing that I've forgotten. I have to go back because it's very important. After my visit with him down in the space, I'm thinking that he's turned over a new leaf. But 3 days later, in my suggestion box, I get a note that goes something like this: Captain, since you've been down here, you see that I'm in port and starboard. I never get to see the light of day. Don't you think you could put a porthole in the main engineering space? Considering it's underwater, it's not a good idea. The Master Chief is really bent out of shape over this one. All right, I gotta hurry, I'm running out of time. So anyway, we're in desperate straits. Tilly comes to. He calls back to the central control station where the engineering officer of the watch is stunned that somebody's up there. And he says, hey, this is Fireman Tilly. What would you like me to do? The response is not printable. But Tilly is directed, start number 1 diesel. That's like asking an 8th grader to pass an advanced algebra test. But Tilly has been studying the cards. And he goes over to start it, and he realizes that the start button is fractured, won't work. And he goes into the space, and he understands what he has to do to set up the diesel, and he lines it up. Then he looks up, and he sees that the manifold is cracked, and he knows that he has to start it, what they call a suicide start. He has to climb up with a screwdriver and stick it in and open the valve to make it all happen. He climbs up, he sits on top of the diesel like a horse. He reaches back and turns the valve to open a 1,500 PSI air flask. And the air goes between his legs, and he takes the screwdriver and bam! And he starts the diesel. Son of a gun. And he jumps down with the instruction card, and he normalizes the diesel to run. And then he gets on the phone, he calls back to the central control station and says, I started the diesel. To which the chief says, get it to the switchboard. Now, at this moment, lights are flickering and we're in trouble. If you saw that movie Titanic, you know, when Gwyneth Paltrow goes to save whatever his name was, who would do that anyway? Okay, we didn't have Gwyneth Paltrow, but we're in trouble. So Tilly goes out, and now it's advanced trigonometry, because now he has to bring the power from the diesel to the switchboard. He's alone. It's 135 degrees in the space. It's dark. He lines up the switchboard, and as he's doing this, I am walking out of AMR 2. My ship is sinking. I have 2 feet of freeboard left. I'm in trouble. It's dark, and the sharks have arrived with the snakes. This is one of those monumental decisions you never want to make in life. And all of a sudden, the lights flicker, and they go bright. And I don't know how this has happened, but it's a good thing. Let's save the ship. We now have power to run the pumps, to fight the fires, and everything else. What has happened is Tilly has figured it all out, lined up the switchboard, and then Michael Tilly, 3 mass cases and the guy we all wanted to get rid of, reaches up and throws the switch to bring the power from the diesel to the switchboard onto the grid. In essence, Michael Tilley saved Samuel B. Roberts. It's all about people. It's all about people. Even the ones that you don't think are the ones that are going to be successful, you got to stick with them. Tilley's performance is just the start of a great career. I can't tell you all the things he's done, but he's now a millionaire. But before we go, I have to tell you one more thing he did. So we get into Dubai, and we're in a dry dock. And it's a 1 million deadweight ton dry dock. We're 4,000 tons. It's like a postage stamp. And I go out to sit on the side of the dry dock, and I'm looking at my ship, totally burned, and only the main deck is good. I can see through the ship, and I'm thinking, youngest commanding officer in the United States Navy, Navy's newest ship, that's about $95 million worth of damage. I am so screwed. And out of the corner of my eye, I see the Master Chief of the Command coming towards me. Oh, God. And it's like the Wizard of Oz, you know? And he's got this piece of paper in his hand. I said, Master Chief, what is it? He said, Captain, it's that damn Tilley. Now remember, Tilley, make any mistakes, you won't see me, you'll be processed out of the Navy. Tilley isn't telling anybody he did what he did, so nobody knows. I know because the engineer came and told me. Master Chief, he doesn't know. Open up the note. It's from my suggestion box. Yeah, another one from Tilley. To Captain Rinn from Fireman Tilley. Captain, with regard to my request for a porthole in the main engineering space, you have exceeded my wildest dreams. All right, let's get serious here. You're all accomplished people. You've all done great things, and you will do more great things. But every one of you in this room has a Fireman Tilley in your workplace, in your school, in your classroom, in your family. You know it. I know it. My challenge for you tonight is, will you be the person that connects with him, that lights the spark, that makes him successful? It's up to you. It's totally up to you. So take that with you tonight. Oh, and to the Sister Bertrands of the world, there's more than one way to get an A, and thanks for noticing my manners. Thanks a lot.